Earlier this year, you retired from the National Institutes of Health. You're no longer the director, but you were still over there doing research.
Running a research lab.
Okay, you served there as director for 12 years, as I said, under 3 presidents. Why was now the time to leave?
Well, I hadn't really planned that. And well, after January 20th, I'm running a research lab. We get instructions that we are not supposed to go to scientific meetings, not supposed to speak to the public in any sort of way. We're not allowed to order any supplies to do the research. And basically, we're told, don't start any new projects. Don't do anything innovative. Just, keep doing the kinds of things that you were already doing. But
Just go ahead and be a scientist, but don't do science.
That wasn't a late-night joke. That was America's top scientist basically admitting the government told him, hey, genius, stop inventing stuff. Yes, in the middle of a global race for medical breakthroughs, the message was, freeze science. Don't move. Don't discover. Don't cure. Just sit there.
medical miracles don't happen overnight. You have to invest in them. Our investments are in trouble now.
President Trump's sweeping federal budget cuts could literally mean the difference between life and death. The Trump administration has so far terminated more than $1 billion in grants for the National Institutes of Health. Now, the NIH is responsible for more than 80% of the world's investment in biomedical research. Funding from the NIH is responsible for countless medical breakthroughs, from cancer to diabetes to strokes, to studies to prevent the next pandemic, to find treatments for Alzheimer's and dementia.
These cuts weren't just numbers on a budget sheet. They were handcuffs on progress. Cancer research? Delayed. Gene therapy? Stalled. Alzheimer's breakthroughs? Put on the shelf, while patients and families waited and hoped for a miracle.
The morale at NIH is the lowest I've ever seen it. People who really thought they were there to make that next breakthrough happen, or at least build a pathway towards that, aren't sure anymore whether that's still possible. Particularly worried about young scientists who are maybe on this path towards being that next person to win the Nobel Prize, and now they're just not sure that that's going to be possible in the United States of America. And many of them, like one of my former graduate students, who can't seem to find an offer in a really good lab, even though it's probably the best student I've had in 10 years, he's looking at Australia.
How long before we get a sense of this brain drain? Like, how long before this is going to affect our future health care?
I think it already has, Stephen. The kind of things that have happened in these 6 months, 2,500 projects were stopped.
But the Trump administration canceled those projects, calling them, quote, egregious examples of waste, fraud, and abuse, and transgender experiments, whatever that means. Other example, the Trump administration targeted a Columbia University lab, which, according to ProPublica, was tracking nearly 1,000 women diagnosed with cervical cancer. Now those labs are being forced to shut down.
This is what happens when science is treated like an enemy instead of an ally. The labs go dark, the breakthroughs vanish, and the only winners are disease and ignorance. And while other nations kept racing ahead, America told its scientists to sit in the corner and think about what they've done.
The Trump administration's war on the scientific establishment ratcheted up last week as Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., announced plans to cut nearly $500 million in federal funding for mRNA vaccine research. mRNA is a cutting-edge vaccine technology that was instrumental in managing the COVID-19 pandemic and has been cited as potentially transformative in the treatment of other infectious diseases and even cancer.
The reason why the mRNA technology is so transformative is that previously the traditional vaccine technologies may take months or years to produce a vaccine in large quantity. The mRNA process cuts that time down to a matter of weeks to months. And that time savings could really be a huge difference when it comes to a novel virus, as we saw during COVID, or if we have a pandemic in the future where we need to have large scales of vaccines be deployed and manufactured, then we do need technology like mRNA instead of relying on cells and egg-based vaccines that will take a lot longer.
Our nation has lots of problems. We worry about things like our national debt, what you might call a fiscal deficit. But, Stephen, we have other deficits that politics aren't going to solve. Maybe they're making it worse. There's a truth deficit. Seems to be no real penalty for saying something that's demonstrably false. It's okay. No, it's not. We have a trust deficit where, because people don't know if they can be sure somebody's telling the truth, why should I trust that person? So we stop trusting each other, and we certainly have a civility deficit. I'm worried about most.
What are you most worried about?
The compassion deficit, Stephen. What happened to us? How can it have become normalized not to be concerned about our fellow human beings, even if they're not living in our house? Where's the outrage? Why are people looking the other way? Where's our compassion? We got to get that back. And I think that's up to us. If we want to flourish as a society, that's what we need to do.
People in jobs are starving. What do you have to say about this,
I have to say, shut up.
I'm of the view that Israel has a right to defend itself, and the easy and simplest way to end this horrific war is for Hamas to surrender and release their hostages.
How do you keep your positivity? How do you keep the hope? What is it that keeps you moving forward?
Well, I have seen over the years, or the decades that I've lived, that you do see change. It takes a long time sometimes, but the one thing that we know is that change happens when people are the ones that make it happen. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. And that's when, as the poet Pablo Neruda said, you can cut all the flowers, but you can't hold back the spring.
What is this going to do, this kind of ideology and non-scientific approach going to do to America and actually to the rest of the world?
Well, when you mix politics and science, you just get politics. And that, I'm afraid, is the circumstance we're seeing right now in the United States. And certainly when it comes to vaccines, which have saved tens of millions of lives, hundreds of millions of lives globally over time, to have this put into a circumstance of casting so much doubt about the efficacy is truly heartbreaking and dangerous. And look what's happening right now in our country with measles. We have the highest level of cases of measles in 33 years because of the reduction in vaccine receptivity in certain communities. And that is not being helped by a government that seems to suggest that maybe these vaccines are not safe after all.
Crazy from an administration that brought Operation Warp Speed and, brought the vaccines that saved so many people during COVID. That was the Trump administration. So how does it make you feel that the Trump 2.0 cuts, is essentially causing a brain drain amongst your greatest scientists and, or your young scientists rather? How does that make you feel as a patrician doctor and scientist?
What I worry about most is the long-term consequence of losing a generation of young scientists. I'm talking a lot to people who are currently in PhD programs or MD programs wanting to go into research. Fully a third of the people I talk to are actively exploring the possibility of leaving the United States, going to Europe. Germany is making quite a nice offer. So is France, so is the UK. Australia thinks this is their moment to bring on a whole lot of talent. This is the brain drain reversing its direction. We have depended so heavily on being the place that everybody wanted to come to do research, and they've many times stayed here and become part of our Nobel Prize winning amazing leadership. And now we're driving those people away. And if we don't have that, that's our most important resource. What's going to happen?